is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Kat and I are doing a no run-through review for the second adventure games, Monochrome Inc., which is kind of like one of the newest unlock puzzle things that are coming out in abundance. Well, you really just, there are a lot more, but the main ones are Exit, which is also by Cosmos, and then Unlock, which is by Space Cowboys. I've done a no run-through review for the Dungeon, which was the first one that came out, a very generic dungeon. It's called The Dungeon. Mm-hmm. And that one, so go check out that review if you want to know a little bit more, but this one is called Monochrome Inc., which is basically you play, I guess slight spoilers, you play like a group of people going into a lab or some drug facility, and you're trying to figure out what they're doing. The company has basically announced a miracle cure, like, hey, it's the end all be all to all drugs, but you were hired from a different client to come in and see what that's about. You didn't play the Dungeon. That was Steven and I. Steven and I really enjoyed the Dungeon. But with this one, in my opinion, the drastic change from the Dungeon to this one is immense. Or the change from the Dungeon to this one, because this one had so much more to it. It basically has 3 chapters, mm-hmm. where you have essentially 2 different points to save, just because you're given 3 different jobs, and oh boy, is that a lot to just do in one run through. I would not recommend. You could, but I would not recommend doing it late at night, where it's just like, yeah, we'll just keep pushing on through. Kat, what did you think of Monochrome Inc? I
don't really know what to think of it.
Or I guess the adventure games. Sorry. But you've only done this one, so. What do you think of the system?
The system works.
Yeah.
It's not bad. The card draws, how everything's laid out. You have certain negative abilities that kind of keep everybody bouncing around and trying to help out elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
In comparison to the exits or unlocks, what do you think?
Based off of, mechanic-wise?
General thoughts?
I would take them over this, just based off of this game.
Yeah.
I feel like the clues, or not even the clues, sorry. The cards weren't, not that they need to be obvious, but they weren't helpful.
Yeah.
I feel like they were leading us one way when really we should have been gently prodded in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to spell it out for us, but they felt like all red herrings.
Right.
It kind of felt like they were doing it on purpose to lead us astray.
Yeah, this one has so much available. You have so many different locations that you can go to. You have so many items in your hands that you're essentially kind of fumbling around trying to combine cards together. And then not only do you try and combine cards together, because they're not color-coded at all. The beauty of the unlock games is they're color-coded to where it's okay, so this is a blue one, mm-hmm. so it has to go with a red one. What that red one is, we don't know.
Right.
We know green is a machine, that's the app. Yellow is a code. You know certain rules.
Yeah.
Here, it's too open-ended. It's okay, here's cards. The lower number goes first when you're combining cards. You can only ever combine 2, so that's the one solid rule is, okay, you can only ever combine 2 cards together. Mm-hmm. But you can also combine 1 card number with a location, and the locations are just numbers. So, in this one in particular, the dungeon, it wasn't too bad. That one kind of guided you in a particular path. With this one was, all right, here's 4 locations you can go to. Jump back and forth.
Yeah.
And you're I don't even know. And then you find random shit and you're just I don't even know if this is useful at all.
Right.
And you're never given like any hints or anything. I mean, there are hints in the rule book, but you're never given hints that are like, okay, this is going to come in later, or this isn't even useful. We and I'm gonna try not to spoil much, but we were given items that were only used for endgame points, or were only used in a card that had text on it. Mm-hmm. And like we found an item early on, and we're like, oh, that's pretty gross. And then we in the app or the adventure book, I highly recommend the app. It's pretty good.
Yeah. And
it's quicker. You just type in the number and it reads it all to you. Very atmospheric. The app's awesome. But then we write, whenever it was reading out to us, we're like, oh, okay. So there is something going on.
Right.
But you don't do anything with that card, so it's just kind of there, but you don't ever know that they're not being used.
Because you think that you're... Naturally, when you have cards like that, you're like, okay, it's got to be used for something. I never used my lamp.
Oh yeah,
lamp.
You certainly didn't. Okay, but it could. But I mean, but you find out. Oh well, like I guess I'll look up the hint. You're not deducted points for getting hints.
Which is nice, yeah.
And in fact, the beauty of these adventure games is there's no time limit.
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to beat it in an hour, like the other two. You are just trying to get through the story. There is a score to it, and it's really just kind of like... It's not about the score. It's really just, okay, what kind of, what kind of story do you want?
Yeah, what ending.
What ending. And there are multiple endings, just like in the dungeon. But I think to get through that story, you're fumbling around in the dark the whole time. We had one clue that came in that I was like, that makes absolutely no sense. Like, why? Like,
how did it match up? We're like,
and that,
no.
Yeah, and that kind of happens with Cosmos and Exit, even Unlock. Like, the escape room, sometimes to us, it can feel like the hints are a stretch.
Yeah.
Where it's like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, like, that only makes sense because you as the designer knew that.
Right.
And it's like
you saw the path that you drew.
And you're like, okay, there's 5 steps from point A to point B, but I'll just omit those because it makes sense to me, so I don't need to include them. I just know how A and B connects, and you're like, so as the player, you're like, I don't know.
You would never get there.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of a hindrance on this one in particular. Now, what I will say, this story was cool.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the adventure. The dungeon ended up being neater, but it was very, very basic, and I think that was their safety bet, because it's like, okay, in the plethora of games that are like this, is this even going to succeed with it just being a generic adventure game?
Right.
But I am glad that they took it in a totally left field direction, because that did keep me intrigued. Because whenever we were coming across those clues that were like, this is fucking ridiculous, I still was going through it because I wanted to know what the story was.
Right, yeah.
And just like the Unlock games, you do come across, like, there's a bunch of cards at the end that you don't need. So it's just like, man, there's still a whole deck here. Do we need to keep searching? You don't. They could just be bonus points at the end, or they could just be nothing,
Right.
I mean, a lot of them are really just your multiple different endings, which I will say I very much enjoy.
I like that. I always love a multiple ending. That's always what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. And the other cool thing is you can either... The game's not good enough, and the dungeon and this one, they're not good enough for you to play through again.
Right.
Like, so really what you do
Especially with how long this one is.
Yeah, this one's pretty long. But you're not gonna come across different things, so you're gonna... What we do, and I did the same thing with the dungeon, was, okay, what's our ending? So we pick one, and then we're like, okay, now let's read what the others are.
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna play through this again. We basically know everything.
All right.
The other negative, and I feel like the dungeon did this one as well, was the each character. Now, I will say I like how everyone plays a different character. Unlike Unlock or Exit, you move around. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take my turn, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do that action. That's what I do. I want to go and do this. Oh, it turns out I actually need that item. So let's meet up so you can give it to me. Then I'll go back. But they give you these subtexts, like a title, like bootlegger, burglar, con artist, and hacker.
Yeah.
And that only ever comes into play like once.
Right.
And if it does come into play a little later, it's like, well, like the bootlegger, I was like, okay, I guess he might be the best one to do this.
Right.
But a bootlegger is one that deals with alcohol. Okay. But the hacker and the burglar were almost pretty obvious.
Right.
What do you think of the different roles that everyone could have, was assigned?
Yeah, really, I only think plot-wise, like, the useful ones were the hacker and the burglar, because when you have, like, this environment, this specific environment especially, and you're like, oh yeah, good thing we brought our bootlegger and con artist along. It's like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Con
it's like
the cat? Like,
the guy who assembles the heist, like, it's like the burglar and the hacker, they're like, alright, yeah, cool. So what do these guys do? He's a bootlegger. Where are we going? You're going to a medical lab with a lot of computers. Okay. So why is he here?
right, yeah.
Well, don't worry, we got the con artist. What are we doing?
Yeah, right, yeah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's not like, oh, they just absolutely can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just better to have the hacker and the burglar because they're just more useful. Like,
right.
They're more, hacker girl, she's in. Like,
right.
You see that in every movie, whatever. The burglar is just always being sneaky
it's
and
like,
running
ooh,
around.
I came across a safe.
Yeah.
Like, perfect. And then the other two.
And then these two might have just been, like, they might as well have just been, like, generic spies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. So question, would you prefer the unlock or exits where it's just open information, everyone is working on the same puzzle, or do you like the more gamery, okay, here's my pawn, I'm gonna move over here and do this action, Or would you rather have it just be like, okay, here's our location, like unlock mainly, because they have the locations, exits don't. They just have puzzles and riddles.
I kind of like the unlock method more.
Yeah.
Just because, like, everyone seems to have, like, a shining moment in those games. It is fun to work with your friends. Not that you can't work with your friends with this game.
Yeah. Because they give you a thematic reason on why we can talk to each other and why we can see what everyone has.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I would say unlock wins over.
I agree. I don't think this is bad. And, it is a different aspect. If you want a more board game feeling, adventure games is going to do it. This one definitely does it because it very much is a lot more locations. You're doing a lot more. But it could be kind of annoying whenever it's like, oh, I came here on one action, you went over to that location, and now I have to spend my time going over there. Like, it's like, oh, I found this out. Oh, wait, no, okay, I inspected that. I need that item that you have. So now I have to spend my time going over there. And technically, by the turn overview, you have to exchange at the beginning of your turn. So then you have to go to some location and do some bullshit action that you don't want to do just for the whole next turn for you to be able to exchange items. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I can go do the action that I want to do. It wastes a lot of the time.
Yeah. Which, like, yes, great, there's no timer, but that is wasting your actual real life time.
Exactly. I prefer the more free-flowing, all items are here, oh, everyone gets to point in versus like...
We did do a few of those wink, wink, oh, I actually gave this to you.
Yeah, we come across like, a piece of clothing and then they go somewhere and you reveal the location, you're like, oh, yeah, I totally gave that to you. Just because it's like, when you see the location, you're like, okay, so now I have to go back, get that item from you, or... Because it's like in turn order, it's like if you do go there, let's say you go and you see that you need an item. It's like, okay, well, you didn't know that. But based off the turn overview, whenever it's the person who does have that item's turn, they can't give it to you because they're not your turn. So they have to go there, and everyone's still wasting time.
Yeah.
Because unless it was more free-flowing where it's like, oh, I'm going to move here, give you the item, or just do the action myself. But that's not fun.
Right, because then you're like, well, I got here first.
Yeah, yeah, I was the player that did it. And we did this. I've only ever played these adventure games with two. So it's always two people controlling two people, and you go back and forth. I couldn't imagine that'd be annoying with four.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, well, what like, okay, so I search the area
Yeah.
and I get to do nothing? Oh, no, sorry. But you did tell me that I needed this item, so now I'm going to get to experience it.
Right.
Whereas the unlocks and exits, everyone gets to participate and put in some input and solve the puzzles together.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is different. I will say between the two, I like this one. Between the dungeon and Monochrome Inc. Not so much because of the puzzles or riddles, but this one had a more engaging, interactive story.
Yeah.
And it still did the different endings, which were cool. The 3 different endings, and I thought they were all good. And you can roleplay this a little bit more. I kind of had the John the Bootlegger be like kind of dumb, and he always like relaxed, and it always fucked him up. And this one actually had like some conditions that can happen to you if you make some decisions, and you're hindered by them, and you're hindered pretty badly by them, and you have to. But even then, there was one to get rid of one of the conditions. I was like, okay, who would think of that?
Yeah, it was very specific. It was like weirdly. It's like, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that one hint that we read, 20 minutes ago, or the one section we read 20 minutes ago mentioned that. Like, who would have thought to use this item in that way?
Right.
Once again, just because this one gives you a lot of cards, a lot of locations, and no visual way to determine what goes with what.
Right.
So you really have to either be aught and like think of it in such a dramatic way, or the game needs to start giving its players kind of some mechanics to go off of, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I definitely think at this point the unlock games are just blowing it out of the water. Like, because we did the last 2 boxes with you,
yeah.
Steven and I did.
Yep.
And oh my god.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, right? Because we just got the Star Wars
yep.
unlock, and they're actually releasing another box later on next year.
Another box.
Not with Star Wars. So yeah. But they are releasing these adventure games. I like them. I'm glad they exist. These are way better than the Deckscape. Deckscapes are the worst out of these. They're so dumb. Like, they're so dumb. Not in like a, wow, those riddles make no sense, but in a, you come across 2 bridges. One of them is worn down. Which one do you take? The good one. And you're like, oh my god, this is so stupid.
What? I had no idea.
But you overthink it because you're like, no, surely it's not that one, just because there's something wrong with it. And then you're like, we'll take the rotted one. And then it's like, you fall, or you lose time. And it's like, okay, so I guess this is for people who don't want to think. Okay, so but you still prefer unlock and exit over this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I will say I definitely prefer unlock. I like these more than the exits. The exits have 0 story. It's just like, oop, you're stuck in my sex room. Here's 17 riddles.
Who needs a story?
Yeah, you have to cut up you have to smash the vase and cut them up and put the pieces together in a backwards way to get the number. And it's like,
isn't this sexy in my sexy room?
You have to put on the ball gag and moan a lot. Why? It's a sex room. So, I don't know. I prefer at least this has a story that keeps you moving forward. Other than that, without like advancing any more, this one, my biggest recommendation is don't do it in one night.
No. Break it up when it's
or do it like, hey, it's a game day, because it took us about 3 hours.
Yes, it did. Yeah, that was unexpected.
Yeah, and the dungeon did not take 3 hours to do, so they're getting pretty. It says 3 times 90, so each chapter was 90 minutes.
Oh my god.
So, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this? Just
based off of the biggest negative for me was kind of being misled. I don't think they did it on purpose. I think I just don't know. Truly, I do not know what they were thinking.
It's information overload.
Yes, and just some of them. It was just not. it was just not a good hint.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me. I'm gonna give it. I don't want to be mean to it because I still like the layout. I still like how they did do certain things. I like the story. It was really interesting. I like that there's multiple endings too. I go crazy over that stuff. So I'll give it a 6.
Okay.
I was gonna give it a 5, but I mean, I want to play another one just
Okay.
to see what it's like. I'm not gonna write them off.
Yeah.
I just wasn't impressed with the hints. Was the main.
Yeah.
I also thought we were gonna kill a character, and I was like, kind of mortified at one point. But
Yeah. I actually agree with you on this one. I don't remember what I gave the dungeon. I think I gave it like a 7, maybe an 8, but that seems a little high. I'm gonna give it a 6 as well. It's still slightly above average. The story is actually what gives it, that extra bump because it was really good, and you don't expect those from these kinds of games. The multiple endings, like you said, are always a plus.
Yeah.
I don't hate the movement. It is just kind of annoying, especially when you're revealing the locations. Honestly, you could easily just this turn overview be a little bit more free-flowing, where it's like, okay, you can move and get an item. But it's kind of stupid. But this one, I mean, it drops points. Like, you get a lot of locations and a lot of cards, and no direction of what to do with it.
And when those cards, I think the biggest thing is when those cards don't get eliminated, but we're done with them, it just continues to flood the board. And
because we have a lot of messages and stuff where it's like, do we do anything with this?
Yeah. It's like having extra screws left over after building something.
Yeah, you're like, oh god, how is this gonna fall apart? Yeah. There's 17 different screws left. Oh, those are just extra. Yeah, and because you come across a location, and it's just and I mean the adventure book or the app does tell you what each of them are, and you can easily just be like, oh, what was this one? Okay, so what were all these? Kind of like what you do in the unlocks, which is fine. But the problem is you just have numbers, so you're just looking and you're like, I don't know which one to go first. I have all these items, I got this one that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
I guess I'll try it in there, or I'll just visit that location because maybe if I visit it, it'll give me a hint of what item I might need. And in this particular one, you got punished sometimes if you did that.
Yeah.
You had no choice, but so it's like, well, I'm fucked up now. Okay, hey, by the way, now go use that item.
Yeah.
I had no way of knowing that without inspecting the location first.
Yeah.
So this one was a little much, but I still think 6 out of 10. I'm right with you. I'm not going to write them off. I'll keep playing them. This isn't like Time Stories where it's like, okay, I'm done.
I'm not done.
I am done, and there's a reason why I bought the new Time Stories. There's a very specific reason.
To not play it.
No. They'll find out at some point. But, yes. So that's our thoughts on Monochrome Inc., the second adventure games. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.